Welcome to Leading by Example, Upholding Standards Without Compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Are you ready to be better within your world and become the standard bearer within your organization or wherever you are? Leaders, aspirants, every one of you, all of us influence our culture, the organization's culture, our workplace's culture through actions taken both inside and outside of the workplace. I founded Ontero Solutions upon integrity, customer satisfaction, and attention to detail, specifically executive coaching and leadership development. Join in for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. Leading by example starts now. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand spanking new radio show that is set to challenge the status quo, inspire change, and empower you to lead by example in a world where standards are often compromised. I'm your host, Dr. Vaughn, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey of discovery and transformation with you. Have you ever wondered why standards seem to erode in our society, whether it's in the realm of ethics, business, politics, or even our personal lives? Why do we often find ourselves in situations where principles and values are sacrificed for short-term gains or convenience? These questions lie at the heart of our show, Leading by Example, Upholding Standards Without Compromise. Over the course of the show, which is about a year long, we will delve deep into the complex landscape of compromised standards, seeking answers, insights, and most importantly, solutions. So, are you ready to learn more about leading example? I hope so, because we're about to begin. So, in this inaugural episode of the series titled Standing Tall, The Journey of Unwavering Ethical Leadership, we will continue to explore the various dimensions of ethical leadership and the ongoing effort to uphold high standards without compromise. In this first episode of the series titled The Moral Compass, Guiding Leaders Through Turbulent Times, we will explore how ethical leaders use their moral compass to navigate through crises and challenging situations without compromising their values. We have 3 discussion points. We will discuss how to identify and stay true to one's core ethical values in the face of adversity. We will discuss some real-life examples of leaders who maintain integrity during crises. And then the last point, we will discuss strategies for ethical decision-making when faced with complex dilemmas. But before we get into those discussion points, I have a couple of research articles and a Bible story to share with you. So the first research article is titled Moral Recovery and Ethical Leadership. It's written by J.G. Cullen and was published in 2022 and can be found in the Journal of Business Ethics, volume 175. This study discusses the concept of themis, which is described by Carol Gilligan as an inner moral compass that alerts individuals when they are straying from their ethical paths. Interesting, right? The research focused on the significance of maintaining integrity and ethical leadership during recovery phases after organizational crises. Another finding that I noted when reading the article is it introduced a new concept called moral injury, which occurs when individuals suffer when their value systems are violated by a leader or person in authority, or when an individual betrays their own values, either intentionally or unintentionally. And this injury, unlike psychological injury, it impacts the individual's character. So it's deep. It's more than just hurt feelings. And then moral recovery, which is a new theory in business ethics and ethical leadership, is the fix and is made possible when systems or organizational processes are created to address the source of the moral injury. And then the second article is titled When Crises Hit Home, How U.S. Higher Education Leaders Navigate Values During Uncertain Times. And this was really interesting to me. It's by B.F. Liu. It was published in 2022, and it can be found in the Journal of Business Ethics, volume 179. The research examined how leaders in higher education have utilized their adherence to core values and a strong moral compass to effectively manage crises, particularly the pandemic. That's the one that this article referenced. The article emphasized the use of ethical principles to guide decision-making processes during turbulent times, such as the global pandemic, and how leaders in higher education approach crisis management with values and guiding ethical principles. Some key findings that I noted were shared values should be embedded into an organization's plans, so decisions aren't made on the fly. Within education, these shared values must be co-constructed with your stakeholders to include faculty, staff, students, of course, but also the community members. Those are the ones, universities serve. And also this article, what I noted of interest was the integration of ethical decision-making into crisis management is a long-standing gap in research. And I kind of knew this many years ago when I was completing my, what they call that thing? When I was working on my doctorate, it was this one thing I forget what it's called. Oh my gosh. But one of my questions was on ethics, and there was not a whole lot out there. So more to follow on that. You may see my name on an ethical research article because it's super interesting to me. And then lastly, codes of ethics are a good starting point, but do not guarantee an ethical response. Codes should be transformational, instructional, and relational. And this is, a huge, a huge foot stump, if you will, because, as a member of several professional organizations, they always, oh, you must abide by the code of ethics, or, you run the risk of being booted out. But again, the code of ethics are a good starting point, but they don't guarantee an ethical response because they need to be transformational, instructional, and relational. So who knows? When I write my little article on, it won't be little, but when I write my article on ethics, y'all going to see that in there. So moving on to the story, we're going to briefly talk about Joseph's leadership in Egypt. And this can be referenced in Genesis chapter 41 of the Bible. The story of Joseph's leadership in Egypt, as recounted in Genesis 41 of the Bible, is a tale of foresight, wisdom, and redemption. And here's how the narrative unfolds. Joseph was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers, and he ends up in Egypt. Through a series of unfortunate events, he is imprisoned falsely. While in prison, Joseph gains a reputation as an interpreter of dreams. Pharaoh, troubled by disturbing dreams that none of his wise men can interpret, hears of Joseph and summons him. Pharaoh's dreams involve 7 healthy cows being eaten by 7 gaunt cows, and 7 full ears of grain being swallowed by 7 thin, blighted ears of grain. Joseph interprets these dreams, explaining that Egypt will experience 7 years of abundant harvest, followed by 7 years of severe famine. He advises Pharaoh to prepare by storing surplus grain during the years of abundance to survive the years of famine. That's an important life lesson as well. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh appoints him as the second in command over Egypt. Joseph is given authority to oversee the land and implement his strategy of collecting and storing grain. Because of Joseph's foresight and effective management, Egypt becomes well prepared for the famine that follows. When the famine arrives, it affects not only Egypt, but also the surrounding regions. Joseph's brothers, who had sold him into slavery, come to Egypt seeking food, not recognizing him. Joseph eventually reveals his identity and reconciles with his family, emphasizing that his journey was divinely orchestrated to preserve lives. And the outcome of this is that Joseph's adept leadership during the crisis not only saved Egypt from disaster, but also turned it into a refuge for surrounding nations, including his own family. This story showcases themes of forgiveness, providence, and the rewards of wise and ethical leadership. And also, there's a theme of excellence in there too. He performed excellently, so he was promoted. And the moral lesson of the story is that, Joseph's story is often highlighted for lessons on the power of forgiveness and the importance of strategic planning. His ability to forgive his brothers and see the greater purpose in his trials exemplifies moral integrity and emotional wisdom. Additionally, Joseph's strategic management of resources during times of plenty to prepare for times of scarcity offers a timeless lesson in prudent leadership and governance for all of us, whether it be organizational finances or your personal ones. This is one that I totally love growing up listening to as a child. So, moving on to our first discussion point for this episode, we're going to talk about how to identify and stay true to one's core ethical values in the face of adversity. So, here are some strategies that leaders can implement. The first one being self-reflection. How often do you do it? Leaders must regularly engage in self-reflection to understand their own values and beliefs deeply. This introspection helps them identify what they stand for and guides their decisions and actions consistently, even under pressure. I know some people journal. I'll start, but I don't really finish. But, you know, reflecting, introspection, meditating on what happened, just, talking aloud. I like to talk to God, but self-reflection as a leader is important. Another strategy is establishing clear values. It's crucial for leaders to clearly define and communicate their core values from the outset. You got to know what you stand for, right? These values should serve as a guiding framework for all organizational decision making and behavior, creating a strong ethical foundation that persists regardless of the circumstances. Your moral compass, right? Another strategy is consistent communication. Ethical leaders consistently communicate their values to their teams and stakeholders, reinforcing these principles regularly. People need to be reminded. This ongoing dialogue helps keep these values top of mind for both the leader and their followers, especially during challenging times. And you want to communicate this as a leader because, there are times when, decisions must be made quickly on the fly by people within, within your leadership. And if they know the type of decision that you would go for because they understand your ethical stance, it makes it that much easier for them. Education and training is another strategy. Providing regular training and resources on ethics and compliance for themselves as a leader, as well as the team, ensures that everyone understands the practical implications of the organization's core values. This education can empower all members of the organization to behave ethically and recognize ethical dilemmas. Seeking diverse perspectives. Leaders should cultivate an environment where diverse perspectives are valued and encouraged. And it's tough. I know it's tough. For me, I'm a perfectionist. You know, I take criticism hard, but it is needed because I tend to, I'm a perfectionist. So when I hear that I'm not doing something well, it's gonna keep me up that night. But tell me, matter of fact, starting with this show, if there's something that you would like to learn or hear or see communicated, tell me. I got you. I might miss some sleep, but it's going to be covered. Again, leaders should cultivate an environment where diverse perspectives are valued and encouraged. Consulting with a range of, opinions and voices and different insights and ethical considerations helps leaders make more balanced and principled decisions. Role modeling as another strategy, ethical leaders act as role models by consistently demonstrating their values through their actions. And as leaders, who do you have as your ethical role model? And how did you pick them? Think about that. When leaders practice what they preach, even in adverse situations, it reinforces their commitment to those values and inspires others to follow suit. And I ask you to think about who's your role model and how you pick them, because by the same token, whether you informally or formally pick that person, someone is watching you and they picked you as their ethical role model, probably more than likely unbeknownst to you. Creating support systems is another strategy. Leaders can develop support systems within the organization, such as ethics committees or advisory boards, which provide leaders with guidance and feedback on ethical issues. And these systems can offer support and advice when leaders face ethical dilemmas or challenges. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help when you get stuck, calling for your lifeline. Leaders can also implement accountability mechanisms to ensure that any deviations from ethical standards are addressed. When leaders hold themselves and their teams accountable, it underscores the seriousness with which they regard their ethical commitments. Another strategy is stress and crisis management. The effective management of stress and crises is crucial for maintaining ethical leadership. Don't be that dude or dudette that gets all red in the face, blustered cussing everybody out because things, have gone upside down. Leaders should have strategies in place to manage their stress and remain calm and collected, allowing them to maintain a clear head and to make clear decisions under pressure. What are some things that you do, as a leader when you're, experiencing, extreme stress? Do you meditate, or are you that person that lashes out at other people? And then you come back later wanting to crack jokes and wonder why nobody wants to laugh. Anyway, but effective stress management is critical for maintaining ethical leadership. Another strategy, or the last strategy, is to reflect on past decisions. And again, this goes in line with journaling or just, your own introspection. Leaders should periodically review past decisions, especially those made during challenging times, to evaluate their adherence to ethical standards. This reflection can provide valuable lessons and strengthen their commitment to ethical decision making in the future. And it doesn't have to be just in the workplace. Granted, this series or this whole radio show is about, leadership within organizations and, the various contexts of organizations such as universities and nonprofits. But, these principles are applicable to your personal life. You know, I know for me, even when preparing the material, I'm thinking about things, personal decisions that I've made where, I compromised. So, discussion point number 2, some real life examples. I think there's 3 I'm going to present to you. 3 real life examples of leaders who maintained integrity during crises. The first one being Howard Schultz of Starbucks. During the 2008 economic downturn, Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, led a significant transformation of the company to navigate through the financial crises effectively. Recognizing the challenges posed by the recession, Schultz implemented a strategic overhaul focusing on core values, customer experience, and innovative growth strategies. Key elements of his leadership during this period included a re-emphasis on customer connection. Schultz aimed to restore the company's original ethos and connection with customers, which had been diluted by rapid expansion. That's another thing to keep in mind as business owners. This involved initiatives to improve the in-store experience and reintroduce the brand's core coffee culture. He also put in place innovative product launches. Schultz introduced new products to rejuvenate the brand and maintain customer interest. This included the launch of Via instant coffee. I don't know how to say it, but I know how to drink it, and it's so good. A product designed to leverage Starbucks' store presence before expanding to broader retail distribution. This strategy utilized both the company's physical stores and its growing digital platform to enhance customer engagement and brand loyalty. Schultz also implemented global expansion and local adaptation. Schultz focused on international growth, particularly in emerging markets like China. This involved adapting Starbucks' strategy to local markets, ensuring that new store openings were based on thorough demographic research and tailored to local consumer preferences. That's a keynote for all of us, right? And before we go to break, the last thing that Schultz did was he implemented strategic conferences and leadership initiatives. So he revitalized team spirit and aligned the company's leadership towards a common vision through large-scale conferences. These events were crucial in reinforcing the company's values and strategies, even during times of financial constraints. Through these strategies, Schultz not only navigated Starbucks through a turbulent economic period, but he also laid the groundwork for sustainable long-term growth. That's what we all want as business people, right? This period of transformation is widely studied as a textbook example of how effective leadership and clear strategic vision can turn potential crises into opportunities for revitalization and growth. So, more to follow on that when we return. We're going to pick up with our next example, Sharon Watkins, but always know that, opportunity always exists within a crisis. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll return. So please come back. Come back. All right. So welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about Schultz what was his first name? I was about to say Howard Schultz. Did we get it? Yep, Howard Schultz. So our next or second example is Sharon Watkins. She was the Enron vice president. So Sharon Watkins, the former vice president of corporate development at Enron, she played a crucial role in unveiling the accounting irregularities that led to the Enron scandal in 2001. Recognizing the problematic accounting methods, Watkins sent a memo to then CEO Kenneth Lay, warning that the company might implode under the weight of these scandals. Despite her warnings, the issues went largely unaddressed, leading to Enron's collapse and one of the most infamous corporate bankruptcies in history. I remember this, like I was in undergrad, I believe. And this was like, when you say textbook example, it was because it was in all the books. Watkins's actions exemplify the role of a whistleblower. She was initially reluctant to take her concerns outside the company, hoping that internal correction could salvage the company's situation. However, as the situation worsened, she testified before Congress and was pivotal in the public and legal reckoning that followed. Her efforts highlighted the need for more stringent corporate oversight and contributed to the enactment of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, which was aimed at improving corporate governance and accountability. Post-Enron, Ms. Watkins was recognized for her courage and integrity, being named one of Time Magazine's Persons of the Year in 2002, alongside other notable whistleblowers. She has since been an advocate for ethical leadership and corporate accountability, speaking publicly about the lessons learned from the Enron debacle. And just like correction, I wasn't in undergrad, just in case somebody tried to come fact check me. I think I was in the master's program. So, and our final example, Angela Merkel, the former chancellor of Germany, her leadership during the European debt crisis and the 2015 migrant crisis showcases her ethical leadership and pragmatic approach to governance. During the European debt crisis, Merkel advocated for stringent fiscal discipline and austerity measures, which were controversial, but underscored her commitment to stabilizing the Eurozone. Her leadership was pivotal in negotiating financial bailouts for countries like Greece, emphasizing the importance of solidarity within the EU while maintaining fiscal responsibility. In the 2015 migrant crisis, Merkel's decision to open Germany's borders to refugees was a significant ethical stance, reflecting her humanitarian principles. This decision was rooted in the belief that it was morally imperative to help those fleeing war and persecution, despite the political and social risk involved. Merkel's policy allowed nearly 1 million refugees to enter Germany, a move that was initially met with widespread support, but later contributed to political challenges due to the sheer scale of the migration. Merkel's approach during these crises often involved balancing immediate humanitarian needs with long-term stability for the EU. And her leadership during the migrant crisis included measures to manage and regulate the flow of migrants, such as reinstating border controls and leading European efforts to establish offshore refugee processing centers. These actions aim to stabilize the situation while addressing the complexities of migration and integration. Critically, her policies during the migrant crisis were sometimes seen as unilateral, which strained Germany's relations within the EU. Her leadership was characterized by a mix of ethical decision-making and pragmatic governance, navigating the fine line between moral responsibility and political feasibility. So these leaders, Howard Schultz, Angela Merkel, and Ms. Sharon, these leaders illustrate how maintaining integrity and ethical values during crisis is not only about making tough decisions, but also about leading with compassion, vision, and a deep sense of responsibility. So for our discussion point, our final discussion point, strategies for ethical decision-making when faced with complex dilemmas. Facing complex dilemmas requires leaders to employ ethical decision-making strategies that align with their core values and the ethical standards of their organizations. And here are several strategies that leaders can use to navigate ethical complexities effectively. Establish a clear ethical framework. Develop and clearly communicate a set of ethical guidelines or a framework that defines the organization's values, principles, and standards. This framework should guide all decision-making processes and be regularly revisited to ensure it remains relevant to the organization's needs and the changing environment that we live in. And we talked about this next one a little bit earlier. Engage in reflective thinking. Encourage a culture of reflective thinking where decisions are not made impulsively, but through careful consideration of their ethical implications. Leaders, responsible leaders, should take time to consider how each decision aligns with their personal values and the organization's ethical standards. Seeking diverse perspectives again, consult a broad range of perspectives to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the ethical dimensions of a dilemma. And utilize ethical decision-making models. We're going to show you two here coming up, but leaders should employ structured decision-making models that are designed to address ethical issues. Models like the four-way test or the 6 pillars of character can provide a systematic approach to evaluating options and consequences. Ms. Moxie, can you show the four-way test graphic? So this is just a picture of it. But the four-way test is a decision-making framework and is often used in business and personal ethics that was popularized by Rotary International. And it consists of the following 4 questions. It's really simple. These 4 questions guide ethical decision-making. Number 1, the first one, is it the truth? This question promotes honesty and accuracy in communication and decision-making. Second question, is it fair to all concerned? This question seeks to ensure fairness and equity in dealing with others. Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? This question encourages actions that foster positive relationships and community spirit. And then the last question, number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? This question looks at the outcomes of decisions to ensure they have positive impacts. The test is designed to be a simple ethical guide for conducting business and resolving also personal dilemmas. And Ms. Moxie, can you show the 6 pillars of character graphic? So this model, the 6 pillars of character, is a model for ethical decision making, and it was developed by Josephson Institute of Ethics. These 6 pillars are foundational ethical principles that can help guide conduct in a variety of situations. The first one being trustworthiness. So trustworthiness emphasizes honesty, integrity, reliability, and loyalty. The second one being respect. Treat others with respect by being polite, kind, and considerate, and by appreciating the dignity and worth of every person. The third pillar is responsibility. This pillar about responsibility is accountability, pursuing excellence, and exercising self-restraint. The fourth pillar of fairness involves playing by the rules, being open, and treating all people equally. The fifth pillar, caring. The essence of this pillar is kindness and compassion. And then the last pillar is citizenship. And this includes obeying laws and rules, being an informed voter or volunteering in the community, and protecting the environment. So both of these frameworks are used widely in educational settings to teach ethics and character, and in businesses to foster a culture of integrity. These models also serve as tools to promote thoughtful, ethical decision-making in various contexts, from business and education to personal life decisions. So another strategy is for leaders is to prioritize transparency and communication. Again, be transparent about the decision-making process. Sharing the dilemmas faced and the rationale for decisions made can help build trust and understanding among team members and stakeholders, even if the decisions are unpopular. Leaders should also foster an ethical culture. Cultivate an ethical organizational culture where ethical behavior is rewarded and where there is a clear protocol for addressing ethical concerns. And this includes training employees on ethical practices and encouraging them to speak up without fear of retaliation. Encouraging whistleblowing, right? And, you want to prepare for crisis management. Leaders should develop strategies for crisis management that include ethical considerations. Being prepared with ethical responses in the face of crisis can prevent hasty decisions that might compromise the organization's integrity. So it's kind of too late to start putting, start looking for, the burlap and then looking for the sand to build a sandbag when, the basement's flooding. You need to already have those sandbags prepared and ready to go when the flood comes. So the same is true for leaders in preparing for crisis management. Your responses should be like muscle memory, already, baked into what you do. You're playing this in your head. So when it happens, you're able to respond ethically to the matter at hand. Leaders should also practice moral courage. Be prepared to make that difficult decision or those difficult decisions that may not be well received with everyone, but are in line with ethical principles. This might include foregoing short-term gains for long-term ethical integrity or stepping up to take responsibility for your mistakes as a leader. And then the last strategy, of course, is encourage continuous learning and improvement, one of my favorites. Encourage ongoing education and dialogue about ethics and leadership. The complexities of ethical dilemmas mean that learning should be continuous. It can't be a, drab training, that remains static from year to year. The training should be continuous with regular training sessions, workshops, and discussions to help keep ethical standards at the forefront of the organization's culture. So leaders, by integrating these strategies into their leadership approach, can better manage the ethical complexities that arise within their roles, ensuring that their decisions are both effective and morally sound. So we have unpacked a whole lot here. Again, as we prepare to close, I want to encourage you to act on this information shared, and then also, act on the information that I shared. And then also, again, I would love to schedule a free strategic leadership consultation with you just to discuss some of these things to make you better, to make us better leaders. And trust me, every time I do this, I, learn something more to help me become a better leader. So I look forward to that. And you can reach me at Giovanna.Baker@Ontero, ENTERO Solutions, all one word.com. So as we wrap up today's insightful discussion on the moral compass, guiding leaders through turbulent times, it's clear that the challenges leaders face are not just tests of their skills, but profound opportunities to demonstrate their values, the work, right? True leadership isn't about steering a ship in calm waters, but guiding it through storms while keeping the crew reassured and focused. In times of crisis, a leader's moral compass doesn't just help navigate complexities, it illuminates the path for others to follow. It's in these turbulent moments that ethical leadership becomes vital, not only for decision making, but for inspiring and sustaining hope and integrity within a community or an organization. So remember, leadership with a strong moral foundation fosters resilience, earns trust, and ensures long-term success by aligning actions with values. As we've learned throughout today's episode, whether through the wisdom of ancient parables or the strategies of modern executives, the core message remains steadfast. The true measure of leadership is not determined during periods of prosperity, but in moments of challenge, how leaders act when the stakes are high and the pressure is on. So before we close, again, I would like to give a shout out to my producer, Ms. Moxie Rogers. She keeps me trained and on point. Please tune in to us for the next episode on Thursday, June 6, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the topic is cultivating ethical cultures, building integrity from the ground up. So let's carry forward the lessons learned today. May we all strive to refine our moral compasses, not just as leaders in our respective fields, but as individuals committed to ethical principles in every action we take. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, the direction in which your compass points is the narrative of your leadership legacy. I'll repeat it again. The direction in which your compass points is the narrative of your leadership legacy. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you at the next episode. Bye. You have been listening to Leading by Example, upholding standards without compromise. I am your host, Dr. Vaughn, bringing you inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. Tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific for fun, practical, and educational stories as I share lessons, both the good and the bad, that I have learned in my 20 years of leadership and management experience. As we go through and learn these lessons, I would ask you to be thinking about those lessons that you bring that you could share for potential, hey, you may even want to be a guest on our show. So think about those lessons as we continue to explore inspiring excellence, one lesson at a time. For more information, please visit www.enterosolutions.com. That's ENTERO.